Okay, so in today's video, we are going to be adding and subtracting polynomials. So our objective is that I can add and subtract polynomials. Basically, here's the one key thing that you have to know about adding or subtracting, is that you can only add and subtract what are called like terms. Like terms are basically just terms with the same variable and degree. That's kind of the key part today, is that it has to be the same variable, and then the key part is the same degree as well, meaning that you can only combine like x with x, or x squared with x squared, x cubed with x cubed. It has to be the same variable and degree in order to combine like terms. So today, very first one we're going to look at here is number 1, where you see negative 5x minus 2 plus negative x plus 6. Any like terms that you can combine, you go ahead and do. So if you take a look here, I've got a negative 5x and negative 1x, negative 5 and negative 1 add up to be a negative 6x. And then you also have a negative 2 and a positive 6. Negative 2 plus positive 6, you get a positive 4, and then there would be your final answer, negative 6x plus 4. So where that becomes important is like on number 2 here, where you see multiple stuff going on. And so you're going to have to combine basically 3 different times. The first time is where you've got 6x squared and a positive 1x squared. When you combine those together, 6x squared plus 1x squared, you get 7x squared. The next one you can combine are your just regular old x's, negative x and negative 2x. When you combine those together, negative x and negative 2x, you get a negative 3x. And then the last thing that you can do here is you've got a positive 3 as well as a negative 7. Positive 3 and negative 7 add up to be a negative 4. At that point, you are done. Final answer there would be 7x squared minus 3x minus 4. All right. Now, where you need to be careful, and you need to be absolutely careful, is on something like number 3. Because there will be some times where you can't combine any terms together. And if that's the case, you just leave it. What I mean by that, take a look here with me. My very highest degree that we have is this negative 8x cubed. But if you take a look, nowhere else in your problem do you see anything with x cubed. Meaning, the negative 8x cubed has to stay as negative 8x to the third. You can't combine with anything, so you just leave it. Now, your next degree going down would be anything squared. So from cubed to squared, you've got a negative 9x squared here in your first set of parentheses, a positive 8x squared in your second set of parentheses, negative 9x squared plus positive 8x squared, you get negative 1x squared. All right, moving on here. Next one, you've got a positive x in your first set of parentheses, negative 2x in your second set of parentheses. When you add those up, positive 1 and negative 2, you get a minus 1x. All right, very last one to look at here is where you've got a positive 2 and positive 4. When you add those together, 2 plus 4, you get a positive 6. Now, to make things a little bit more simple at this point, really you can drop anywhere where you've got a 1. So really the most simple answer would just be negative 8x cubed minus x squared minus x plus 6. It is very important, make sure that when you are adding or subtracting that you do so in order from least to greatest degree. That way your final answer you can guarantee will be in standard form. Alright, now that was kind of adding. Adding is kind of nice because all you have to really do is combine any terms that are alike. You don't really have to worry about anything else. Here's kind of the difference, is with subtracting, you can basically do the same thing. The one key difference there with subtracting, though, is that you have to distribute the minus sign first. Then you're allowed to combine like terms. So really, subtraction is the same as addition. You just change everything in the second set of parentheses to its opposite, and then you're ready to go. What I mean by change it to its opposite, take a look here with me, is at least in problem number 1 here, which is going to be the first one we look at. First thing you would need to do is take your minus sign and do what's called distributing it to both terms in parentheses. In other words, this positive 3x that you see right here in this first term in parentheses, has to become the opposite of positive 3x. And when you distribute, it becomes a negative 3x. Same thing happens with this negative 2x squared that you see in those parentheses as well. There you change the sign once again. Negative times negative gives you a positive 2x squared. Now, at this point, nothing has changed in your first set of parentheses. That's still 4x squared minus 1. At this point, once you've distributed the negative, it becomes just like addition. You combine anything that are like terms, so in this case, you've got like a 4x squared out in front, a positive 2x squared at the very far right there. 4x squared plus 2x squared gives you 6x squared. My next term going down would be this negative 3x, so you'd have a minus 3x. And then your very last term that you'd work with here would be this negative 1. Make sure, don't forget about it. It still has to be part of your final answer. But your final answer here would just be 6x squared minus 3x minus 1. Alright, so let's try number 2 together, and then we'll see if we can't get one on our own here. So, with number 2, here we go. On number 2, where you've got 12x minus 8x squared plus 6, all of that minus, in parentheses, a negative 8x squared minus 3x plus 4. Same thing as before. Make sure and distribute your minus sign all the way throughout. In other words, when you take a minus negative 8x squared, you get a positive 8x squared, or a plus 8x squared. Then a negative multiplied by a negative 3x, you get a positive 3x. Negative multiplied by the positive 4 at the very end there, you get a minus 4. Keep in mind, everything from your first set of parentheses is still the same, still 12x minus 8x squared plus 6. Alright, at this point, with combining terms, the largest degree I have is where you see a negative 8x squared and a plus 8x squared. Here's what's kind of cool, is that negative 8 plus positive 8 adds to be 0. In other words, those two terms cancel each other out, and they're gone. Going on from there, your next biggest would just be your regular old x's. So you'd have a positive 12x and positive 3x. When you add those together, you get a positive 15x. And then for your last term here, only thing left to do is to look at where you've got a positive 6 and negative 4. Positive 6 and negative 4 add up to be a positive 2. So anytime you distribute the negative, your problem basically turns into an addition problem, and you're just adding the two numbers together. Alright, at this point, to check and see how you're doing, go ahead, pause the video, try number 3 on your own, and then check your answer in a little bit. Alright, here we go. So, when you distribute your negative, and keep in mind you're subtracting, we've got to distribute. Negative multiplied by 2x cubed, you get a minus 2x cubed. And then negative multiplied by a positive 4x squared, you get a negative 4x squared. Negative multiplied by a negative 3x, you get a positive 3x. And then negative multiplied by a positive 1, you get a minus 1. Once again, nothing from your first set of parentheses changes. You still have negative 6x cubed, still have your plus 5x, still have your minus 3. And at this point, we're ready to change this into an addition problem. So, we just have to look for anything we can combine together. Starting with cubes, because it looks like cubes are going to be our highest degree here. So we've got a negative 6x cubed and negative 2x cubed. When you add those together, you get negative 8x cubed. Next thing we can combine are our x squared. So take a look here. The only x squared we've got is a negative 4x squared. So it just stays negative 4x squared. Next one we can combine here would be our just regular old x's, where we've got a positive 5x, positive 3x. 5x plus 3x, when you add those together, you get a positive 8x. And now the very last thing that we can combine is we still have a negative 3 and a negative 1. When you add those together, negative 3 plus negative 1, you get a negative 4. And then here would be your final answer. Alright, so today's video is actually going to be pretty quick. In fact, that's all I've got for you today. Double check over, make sure everything looks good. First thing to kind of make sure of is that you can only add or subtract like terms, meaning that terms with the variable and degree have to be the same. So you can't combine just x squared with x or x cubed with x to the fourth. You can only combine x squared with x squared or x with x or x cubed with x cubed. Next, make sure when you go to combine like terms that you're keeping them in the right order. So if you get them out of order and you have to rewrite it in standard form, make sure that you are getting that changed around. Now, at the very end here, the one thing to watch out with subtracting is to make sure you distribute your negative all the way through that second set of parentheses first, then go through and make it an addition problem. And that way it ends up being very, very similar there. If you've got questions, we'll go over them at the start of class on Wednesday. A couple things you need to be working on for right now. First of which is, once you are done with the notes, make sure that you pick up worksheet 7.2. Worksheet 7.2 is over adding and subtracting polynomials. There are paper copies over on the blue cart for you. Make sure you pick one up. Also, be sure that you are checking your answers on Schoology. I've already got the answer key uploaded for you so that you can check your work. You just have to get online and use it. If you get done with that, you might just make sure that you've turned in worksheet 6.6 and or your review, because I'm still missing those from a lot of people. Make sure those are done. Otherwise, have a great day, guys. Work hard. Be nice to the sub. Be polite. I'll see you back on Wednesday.